Hi, this is Gayatri Shah from Mind Spectrum. Today we have with us Elizabeth Payea-Butler from NLP Possibilities with DHE here in downtown Toronto, Ontario. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Gayatri. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Elizabeth, as we all know, is a leading expert on using neuro-linguistic programming, especially with children. Elizabeth, would you like to tell us how you started using NLP with children? Because it's absolutely fascinating.
Well, it's kind of a funny way. I view it as a bit funny. What occurred was I became an NLP practitioner, and I had a private practice here in Toronto. And I was working at a holistic center called Life Response. And at the time, I started by working with adults. And I noticed a pattern of all my clients always seemed to talk about their problem occurred when they were children.
Okay.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. And I thought, well, it kind of makes sense because we've all been children. And I thought, well, what would their life have been like if the things that they were learning and changing while they were working with me had been actually taught to them when they were children? And that was kind of the beginning of it, because once that occurred, and I thought, well, who does work with children? Like who uses NLP with children? And I found out in the center, because everybody in the center actually did have NLP training. That was a prerequisite to working at Life Response at the time.
Okay.
And they all admitted that none of them ever worked with children. So I asked them if they would check with their clients to see if any of their clients were willing to let me work with their children while they were working with the other practitioner. And that's how it all began.
You have been working with children for a very long time. When did you get certified as an NLP practitioner?
Well, my first certification was actually in 1993.
Okay.
And I took my practitioner and my master practitioner, and I have been consistently certified through the Society of NLP, of course. And my first trainers were Dr. Richard Bandler, who continues to be my trainer, and John Lavelle, who again continues to be my trainer. And I have to say, it was the most marvelous time. The most marvelous time. Then I had actually set up that I wanted to do more NLP training. And I actually did want to train other practitioners. The only thing was, I felt that I really had to have experience. So I had 5 years where I did one-on-ones, mostly with children and some adults. So it'd probably be 80% children, 20% adults. And in 1998, I actually became an NLP trainer. So I'm now very privileged that here we are in 2012, and I have not just been an NLP trainer. I am a master trainer of NLP, and I have a specialty in design human engineering.
Wow, so that's almost 20 years of working with both adults and children.
It's true. And now that I think about it, it does make a lot of sense as to why people actually say that I'm an expert of using NLP with children.
That's correct. I also understand, Elizabeth, that for about 10 years, You've also been holding kids camps, so using NLP and holding kids camps. So how did that happen, or how did you think of that?
Well, again, I truly love what I do, and everything has been sort of, some people could say serendipity, some people could say magical. I really don't know. But when I was in my NLP practitioner program, and I always say it was exactly on day 6. And I have no idea. John Laval was the trainer for my prac, and I have no idea what he was talking about on day 6. I'm absolutely sure I have no idea what I did on day 6. But somehow, day 6 was a day of complete transfer me, and possibly complete transformation, because the next day, I was convinced that I would actually have, at some point, an international kids camp, an NLP international kids camp. So when I was at Life Response and I had begun to build a reputation of a practitioner who could work with children, I thought, well, what else could I do? Now, so what I began to do was I designed one-day programs, and they actually weren't. They were actually only 20-minute programs. And so we would run a thing called Kids Days, D-A-Z-E. And we would have all the parents who were willing to let me work with their children for 20 minutes, bring their children in. And they would come in one-on-one. We had a huge seminar room, and I had each area kind of set up, and each area was designed to build a certain resource, whether it was the ability to decide more effectively or quickly, to get over fears, belief changes. I had all these very funky little things that were really for kids. And so every 3 months, we would have a Kids Days. And it was just a lot of fun. And that was actually the foundation of the exercises and things that we did, because later on, in, I believe it might have been 2000.
Okay.
So I think in 2000, or yeah, possibly 2000 was my very first NLP Kids Camp. And it was only 4 days. And once a year for 4 days, we would have kids come in. The counselors were all, the camp counselors, were all NLP practitioners or master practitioners who had been trained specifically by me. And they were taught the exercises and what to be listening for. And we did that once a year for 10 years. And 2 years ago, we basically stopped that program and just let it go, and are hoping that others will pick it up and go for it.
Elizabeth, let's talk a little more about the kids camp. I realize that you're no longer doing them anymore, but you did have them for nearly a decade. That's 10 years, which is a lot of change. So what did you discover during that time frame? And another thing that I'm really very curious about is that you mentioned the camp counselors, and you did insist that they had to be NLP practitioners or master practitioners. So why was that? Why was it so important for them to be NLP certified, to be camp counselors for you?
Well, I have to say that that particular question came up a lot in the 10 years, because we had a lot of people that would contact me and they would offer to volunteer, because one of the things that I didn't mention was The camp counselors for those 4 days were all volunteers. They took 4 days either away from their jobs or away from their businesses and were completely dedicated for those 4 days to the NLP Kids Camp. And lots of people would email me and say, I heard you've got a kids camp, I'd love to come and work at your kids camp, and I would thank them very much. But really, first of all, I only wanted NLP trained people to be working at the kids camp. And that was for the language skills and for the ability to make change quickly. Because the kids would be playing, all right? They would be on task doing something. And they would have conversation going on. And in a heartbeat, one of their beliefs would come up. Either the belief they couldn't do it was too hard, or something would come up in conversation. We wanted to make sure, I was insistent, I admit, I was like dog with a bone, that the practitioner, the counselor that was listening and watching that particular group could respond very quickly and address it, because it might not come up again. So, and then they were reporting to me what would be occurring in their small little pods, as we call them. And then I would make sure that the next time I was doing a module or introducing a module, I would actually address the things that came up. So very quickly we were doing it. Plus, the thing that was really magical about this was that we also future-paced. We future-paced all the skills that they were working on. Okay. And the kids loved it. Absolutely loved it. For me, what I learned over those 10 years was we live in a very changing time. 10 years is a huge amount of, in those 10 years, the technology changes that have taken place, the cultural changes that have taken place, the media changes that have taken place, and all of these influence on children. So what I found, and why, again, I was insisting on having NLP practitioners and master practitioners, was they all wanted to do some type of work with children. And so whatever group came in, and this is how we looked at it, the group that came in 2000 came in with all their own environmental concerns, all their own beliefs that were based on that time. And the age group was 8 to 12. Now, what occurred in that was I also believed that whatever issues these kids were talking about right then, which we were going to do something about, there was millions of children who would have the same issues and not have somebody to deal with them. I remember when I said at Life Response, my adult clients all mentioned something that happened when they were children. So here we were with a group that I knew that probably within 5 years, any other outside of the kids camp kids were going to have lived with those issues for up to 5 years. Their beliefs would have been built in, all kinds of things would have happened. And they would actually be the clients that would then be showing up in my office and in other practitioners' offices. So that trend, we considered ourselves future trenders. Okay. Because we would learn from that group how to address that. And then we would just anticipate that 5 years in the future, when other children came in who were now teens, we would know exactly where that had stemmed from.
So what are some of the NLP skills that you would be using with children especially in like 4 days?
Well, it was cute because we actually designed, in that 4 days, I designed a 4-day program that incorporated a lot of the NLP practitioner program. So we talked about the presuppositions of NLP, but we narrowed it down to only a few, the ones that would be significant to them. As well, we taught them the representational systems and submodalities, but what we did was we linked it back to how to improve their writing. So compositions could come alive when they were talking. We actually talked about the meta programs, okay, and the meta model, and how they would get more cooperation from a teacher if they asked more precise questions or responded more precisely compared to why. All right, and so we looked at all the different models of it. Admittedly, we taught them a little bit about having good feelings for no reason at all.
Okay.
How to manage their state. And again, it's like we also taught them how to actually experience the future a little bit. And so if they had a big project, instead of going, oh my God, it's too much, I can't do it, taking a moment and going out to beyond when it's all completed, turning around, take a look at it, feel really good about it, look back and see how they did it, and then come back and go do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was fabulous.
Must have been. It's been nearly 10 years since you had your first kids camp. Some of those kids, maybe young adults now, have you had an opportunity to talk to them or meet them just to see how they're doing or where they've taken those NLP skills?
Yes. I actually made it a point to stay in touch with as many of the kids as possible, either through email, through their parents, because we've always said if something occurs, just give us a call and I'll be happy to sit down and chat with them, because we don't call it a session, we just call it chat.
Okay.
And so a few years ago, I actually had one of my significant birthdays, and we held it at a hotel, and we invited everybody, including the kids from the kids camp and their parents. And I have to say I was really thrilled, because I think almost every year was represented at that birthday party. And they would come with their parents, and the first ones really are, they were at the time almost finished their university. They were telling me what they were taking. They were telling me how they still use the little hints and techniques that we taught at the kids camp, and how they intend to take it into business when they get a job, and how they're going to act in an interview. And it's just, it was so thrilling. Yeah. And I suppose very satisfying to see those kids who are no longer kids. They were young adults making a difference.
Wonderful. Is that where the title of Aunt Liz came up by any chance?
It's very true. Back in the beginning, early on, I actually used to write a column called Ask Aunt Liz.
Okay.
And it was a children's column that children could write to me and ask me questions, and I would respond to it. And so basically all the kids just knew that they could call me Aunt Liz. Funny enough, in the kids camp, they never called me Aunt Liz. They just kept saying she's the boss. But actually, speaking of the Aunt Liz title, it's kind of still continues on, because I actually have some who will email me and they will say, "Dear Aunt Liz." So I guess it'll never go away.
Since you're no longer having these kids camp, what are you doing now with all the knowledge and expertise that you have acquired over all these years?
Well, when I was acquiring the knowledge, I didn't seem to ever have time to do anything other than working with kids and doing my practitioner and master practitioner trainings and talking about giving them examples. Now I have a little more flexibility, and I have noticed that a lot of NLP practitioners and master practitioners have noticed that now is the time to be working with kids. They're willing to step up to the plate and take some time to dedicate. I had always said if people would dedicate 10% of their time of their practice to working with kids, we would be in a much better place. Now there's a new generation, as far as I can tell, of not just a new generation of kids, but there's also a new generation of practitioners and who are willing to do it. So I felt this was the time to actually teach them as an expert on how to use their NLP skills and training, and how to focus, how that might have to be a little modified, or what they would listen to that's different when it comes to working with kids.
And when you say working with kids, how early would you recommend starting using NLP with kids? Where's the line on that one?
When we started the kids camp, I said that age 8 was the time. And my reasoning was very reasonable. First of all, in the earlier stages, most children have absolutely no control over any parts of their life. By age 8, they're actually in a position where they're doing certain things for themselves. They are now in the school system and are being influenced by a lot of different authority figures. So 8 is where I felt the line to teaching would be a good spot, to helping them, to give them the counseling they required, to play with them. Before that, I know I've had people have said to me, well, my child is 5 and these type of things. My statement is that from 1 to 5, they are modeling on the adults in their lives. So if they're going to use their NLP skills, use it on themselves, so that these children are seeing the best possible model. Between 5 and 8, a lot of their beliefs start to show up based on what they're hearing from adults. So again, it's really important that adults aren't trying to make changes to the children at too young an age, because they're developing all their own personality, their own style, their own, how to take care of themselves. It's connecting to themselves. So it's more important for the adult to actually be the model and make the changes so that those fears and phobias and concerns and worries of the world that the adult is carrying doesn't show up as an unfounded belief in a child's life.
I have heard a rumor that you are developing a children's series. Um, it is a strong rumor, but we have no idea as to whether it's a DVD series, a series of books, or CDs. Is that anything that you'd like to comment on or like to share with us about the rumor?
Well, I will say it's probably not so much of a rumor as it has been in the past. I have been working on a series of children's stories, and it's actually called the Aunt Elma series, and it has a wonderful set of characters, a little boy and a little girl, and of course Aunt Elma. That she looks a lot like me. I don't know. and the mother of the little boy and girl. And each story is just kind of a sweet little story that helps other children learn. So part of it that it started out was just a little light story of the two characters going to visit their aunt, and it's always they go to visit their aunt, and they tell Aunt Elma what's happening, and Aunt Elma helps them figure out what to do about it. And so it's not quite a mystery series, but it's kind of cute. And there are times that sometimes they bring their friends who might have a problem, and Aunt Elma helps them to understand how to help their friends. So, is it a book? Is it a CD series? Is it a DVD series? That part I really haven't got the answer for. I do have the storylines, and technology is changing so rapidly that every time I talk to somebody about it, they go, oh, and you know what you could do? So maybe in the end it'll be a Disney movie.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for spending this time with us. I thank you for giving us this opportunity, both for myself and on behalf of Mind Spectrum. Would there be anything that you'd like to add before we sign off for today?
Well, based on the fact that we were talking about kids, I think I just want to reinforce that we do live in a very changing time now, and things are changing faster than ever, even in the past 10 years. It's exponentially speeding up. I think this is a really important time for parents to become the best models possible. And if required, far be it for me to put in a commercial, but really, there are NLP trainers all around the world, in every country. So if you feel that there's a little bit of communication skill required, then seek them out and spend some time with them. The important thing is the quality time that is spent with children right now. That's absolutely essential. So yes, spend more time with your children, enjoy life, and I will say, smile and enjoy life even more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight to have you on our show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Gayatri. I truly appreciate this opportunity.
You're very welcome. With this, we'll be signing off for today. This is Gayatri Shah from the Mind Spectrum here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. You all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.